at your face on my screen right now? Does it look like I'm
It's
looking into the camera?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, you look perfect.
Okay, great.
Yeah, there, that one, yeah, there, right there. It's perfect.
Okay, cool.
We're live, everybody. This is Comic Spot, and today, somebody I look up to in the comedy world, and I adore her. I adore her show daily. You gotta tune in. It's better than late night. I guarantee it, or my money back, or whatever. I want to read you this really long introduction. So, Jennie, if you want to nod out for a second or look at the ocean, I I can't leave any of it out. It's just too good. Jennie McNulty, the New England Blade named Jennie McNulty one of the premier comedians in the country. The Examiner called her infectiously energetic, remarkably deft comic with a warm, disarming style and some of the best improv skills in the business. Curve magazine rates her among the top 10 lesbian comics. Her playfully sarcastic style wins over every crowd the moment she takes the stage. Jennie's comedy career has taken her all over the world, from entertaining the troops, woo, in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Eastern Europe to the beautiful beaches of this and serene ports of the LGBT travel world with Olivia and Atlantis travel companies. You may have seen her on NBC, Logo TV, and in the independent sci-fi film Lights. Jennie is also stars in the feature Freelancers Anonymous by acclaimed Spanish director Sonia Sebastian. You guys, this lady is something else. For over 20 years, Jennie has headlined comedy clubs and pride festivals all over North America and spent 6 summer seasons performing nightly in Provincetown, Massachusetts. McNulty has also contributed to the Lesbian.com magazine, and for fun, Jennie played 15 seasons on a professional women's tackle football team and is now their game day announcer. McNulty, who has a master's degree in science, exercise science, make sure you got that, has a master's degree in exercise science and a BA in psychology and a lifelong love of sports, has melded all of these passions into the in-house comedy chat. The show, seen Monday, Wednesday, Friday, live, is more than a talk show. Yes, indeed it is. It energizes your mind, your spirit with funny monologues, celebrity guests, and a walk on the beach that the viewer is encouraged to join in and walk along. The in-house comedy chat is a 30-minute recharging respite to the craziness of the world today. Our guest, without further ado, give it up for Jennie McNulty. Woo! Hot thing.
My goodness, everybody's asleep now after on that my long rambling intro there, but it's all true. It's all true.
I love it. Oh my gosh. So, you know, one of the things that I noticed in your intro is that accomplishment, not braggy. It wasn't like ego driven. It was just the facts. And that's kind of the way that you come across. You're very factual, you know, even your monologues and yet hysterically funny.
Thank you.
And like you said in your intro, you disarm people right out of the gate. Like people fall in love with you. So before I go back into regressing into your childhood up till today and the future, I was wondering if you could give people a little tip, a glimpse of how does Jennie do that to capture people the minute you take the stage? What's your little secret for that?
You know, it's comedy. It's so weird now because we're not doing it live anymore in front of a crowd, but so much of what goes on from an audience member's perspective is sort of unconscious. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do as a comedian that can either put off an audience member or engage an audience member. And, you know, ideally you want to get something quick and funny right off at the top, so they're laughing, especially if they're there for a comedy club. They want to laugh. They want you to be good. But that's the thing you have to try to remember is they want you to be good. They are there to laugh. They are there because you've engaged in this contract that says, I want to laugh, and you're a person that's supposed to be funny, that's going to make me laugh. Let's do this together. So you take the stage with that confidence, knowing these people want to laugh. Give them something to laugh at. They want to like you. They want to be there with you. So as opposed to, oh boy, I hope they like this. Because when you come up and you're tentative, like when I notice it is a joke, because my humor tends to be innuendo if it's dirty. And when I do a joke that's for me slightly off color, if I'm a little bit hesitant in its delivery, it won't go over. And it's not that I worded the joke any differently. It's just the level with which you deliver that material. So I think when you just, take the stage like, hey guys, want to have some fun? They're like, yeah, that's what we're here for. Let's do this. So it's just sort of approaching them like we all know we're going to really like what's coming next. So that's kind of a good part about doing it now on the internet is I just assume that they're liking it. And I just assume I am killing it when I'm doing my monologue, and we're all happy. So
when I watch your show, In-House Comedy Chat, I tune in for a little bit when I can. And when I do catch your monologue, I'm gripped by it.
Thank
you.
It
is so professional. And like you said, when you're delivering your monologue, you have no audience laughing, giving you feedback. But your timing is impeccable. I feel like there's an audience there laughing.
Well, that's, that's kind of what you do. Everybody sort of suspends disbelief when you go into whether it's a movie or whether it's anything. It's like you want to escape. You want to, like when I teach comedy, one of the things that drives me nuts is people looking at their watch. It's like they're with you. They forgot they're in a comedy club. They're just being entertained. They're just happy in this moment. And all of a sudden you go like this and they go, oh, right. They're a comedy club. They're working. They've got a certain amount of time to do. It's a job they're doing. It takes that whole like magical place we were just in away. And so it's all about creating the illusion. And as a comedian, you really have nothing to work with other than the spirit you bring onto the stage and the essence that you bring onto the stage. And you just got to hope that they go with that.
Exactly. We started with the present day, and I didn't get into you growing up and becoming funny. So I'm going to stick with this just a little bit more. In your intro, it talks about you have the best comedy improv skills in the business. So I'd like to hear about having the best improv skills. It's not my wheel. I've learned I have a brain injury. And so I've learned to like myself when I make mistakes on stage and work with it, and be loony, like a little bit like Maria Bamford. You don't know where this is going to go.
Right.
But how do you describe yourself as a comedian / improv artist doing your comedy? How does that fit with you, or how does that help you?
Words are kind of my thing. Like when I do improv, one of my biggest weaknesses as an improviser is space work. Like for example, if you're holding a cup of coffee like this and I'm going to sip my coffee and do this. And then I have a tendency to just sort of drop it. And then my hands are just in sort of this weird position that once was holding a coffee cup. And now it's just, I look like I'm in, I have some sort of a disease. So for me, it's all words, and that's sort of how my comedy is too. It's plays on words, puns, things like that, or seeing a situation. I'm not saying I'm not completely not visual, but for me, it's all just like hearing the words, because comedy is looking at things differently, right? You take everybody, especially observational humor, you take what everybody looks at, and then you go, oh, wait a minute, let's look at it from this angle, and hey, that's pretty funny. So it's just, my parents were funny. My sister's funny. We grew up, liking to laugh. We grew up, in a funny household where it was never mean-spirited. We never picked on one another, but it was just kind of fun. It was teasing, but never mean. And so you just sort of that's a skill you learn. You just learn to look at things a little bit differently, and then it just sort of pops out. Honestly, the beauty of improv is you don't know where it comes from. When you see really good improvisers, and especially long form improv, where they'll start with a couple of different topics, and then all of a sudden it gets woven into the story that you would have sworn they had a script for. And that's just the beauty of improv. It just creates itself. So the whole thing of improv is just letting yourself be open to whatever is going to flow into your head, and try not to filter it too much before it comes out of your mouth, and see where you land.
So, you spoke about growing up in a funny household. How many siblings do you have?
Just one, just my sister and I. Just small family. We're like 10 years apart, so we were kind of almost both only children. We're very, very close now, but it wasn't really until we were adults that we got particularly close. But she's great. She's hilarious too. She's really, really funny, my sister.
Now, what does she think of your comedy, and has she ever thought about doing it herself?
She should, but she doesn't want to be up on stage. She's an artist as well. She's a painter, and she and her partner have written a screenplay that is actually really doing well now. And they're just shooting, I think, next week, the final scenes of it. So hopefully that will be doing. So she's really kind of, expresses her creativity as well, just not up on a stage.
I like that. Yeah, some people are funnier behind the scenes, or with the writing or directing, than being the person getting the attention. I'll go back to my brain injury. When I first started writing comedy, I just wanted to write it and have other people deliver it, because I didn't have confidence to be on stage and remember my lines or anything, And
well, what did you do then? What was it that gave you the confidence to go, let me just try to read my own stuff here?
Well, I found a comedian whose style was just like mine, Wendy Liebman.
Yeah, I love Wendy Liebman. She's great.
Yeah. And I sent her a bunch of jokes, and I said, you go do them. She thought they were funny. And she said, no, you have to. And she says, you have to go on stage. And when she believed in my jokes and me, even though I have a brain injury, that's what, it just gave me that extra push to go up on stage and try it. And, it took me, this is my 7th year, and really it's just the last 6 months that I've been funny on stage throughout a whole set.
Mm-hmm. So it's, what though, you have to just keep doing it if you really like doing it. Once you do that, so I've heard, once you do a set that doesn't work, again, so I've heard, you learn, nothing happens. It's not brain surgery. It's not rocket science. No one dies. I mean, you could say I died on stage. You don't really die. You just have a crappy show, but nothing really goes any farther than that. So it's, once you learn that it's like, hey, okay, it's not that big a deal. It's, you can keep going, and the highs are so worth it. I mean, I've done a lot of drugs in my day, and I gotta tell you, it's the best. That feeling of being up on stage and just really connecting with that room of people, and really, making that room of people laugh, there's nothing like it. It's just it's a fun shared experience, and that's why any comic you're talking to right now is probably telling you how much they miss it, and how much they miss that wave of energy coming back at us. And we won't be able to do it, because right now, in addition to that wave of energy, is a wave of microscopic particles that can kill us with their laughter. So we really can't be having people laughing at us anymore, or we'll die.
Yes, it's so not funny, but it's true.
Yeah.
The very thing we want could kill us. That's the irony.
Yeah.
So you grew up in a funny household, and what made you go into comedy on stage and improv? And
well, I had always wanted to. I'd always wanted to be a big star in movies or whatever. I didn't quite know. I'd always liked comedy. But I was working in it. My parents retired and moved to Florida in my senior year of college. And I did not want to go down to Florida with them. So I needed to get a job. I got a job in a research lab, and I was working there. And I had always done sports, so I was never in theater. And, I just thought, you know what, no one's going to come in and go break into the lab and go, you there with that rat, come, let me take you to Hollywood and make you a star. So I just started like, thinking about comedy and open mic. And I was working in a research lab with a neuroscientist, and I was making him laugh, and I was making the people in the lab laugh. And I'd always made my friends laugh, but you figured that's your friends, right? So here I was making these doctors laugh, and in fact, I said something, and he goes, "Oh, she's really quick." And I thought, wow, okay, so maybe I should try this. So I went and I watched about 4 open mic nights. And as you know, if you've been to an open mic night, some people up there are really good professionals working on the material. Some people look like they've lost a bet. And so I felt like I could do at least that well. And at the time I was working and living far away, so I would essentially write material on the way there. I would hear something on the radio and I would go, "Oh, that'd be really funny." And I would make a joke about it. And then I would go, "Oh, no, it'd be funnier if you said it this way." And then I'd say it a couple of times to amuse myself, right? So I thought, this is really crazy behavior. I need to rationalize it somehow. And I thought, let me just try it. So I went, like I said, I went and watched the open mics. And the very first week I went there, a dude that I went to junior high school with was on stage. And I went up to him, and his name was McLean, Jim McLean. And we always sat next to McLean and McNulty. We always sat together, right? So I'm like, "Jim, hi, remember me?" And he's like, "Oh my God, sure." I said, "How do you do this?" And he said, "Well, you got to get 7 minutes ready. You call and you put your name on the list on Thursday, and you call back Monday night to find out whether or not you made it." So I went back and I was in the research lab, and I was talking to my friend that I was working with, and he was from Taiwan. And I was telling him, "I'm thinking about doing this, but I need more material." And he goes, "You know what? You don't need material. You need stage time. You're funny." And I thought, coming from him, because there was a bit of a language barrier, and he laughed a lot with me, I think, just because you're sort of laughing at the presentation of it. So I thought, all right, Chad, I'm going to take your advice. And I signed up, and fortunately, it went well, really well the first time. And I kept doing it. So that was that.
Speak to us about some of the crazy stuff that comes in comedy, in the comedy world. Like, speak about all the writing you have to do to get to where you're at, because people just go, "Oh, it happened, she's there," but like, it doesn't happen overnight, and people don't understand all the writing to just come up with 3 minutes of material.
Yeah, it's true. And and a lot of time you'll write a joke and you'll use it and you'll use it. And then 3 years later, you can sort of repurpose it in a way that was funnier than before, or sometimes you'll find a tag that you add to it, so things can always change. But it's not just the writing, it's a lot of, for me, when I started, and I don't know how people start here in Los Angeles to try to get any kind of decent stage time. The stage time here in LA is at when it was at, for young people, young comedians, not necessarily young people, coffee shops, or, bars that are doing comedy, or restaurants that are doing comedy. And in general, half the audience is other comedians, or, people that are, so you don't get the real feedback here in Los Angeles. And so to go out on the road is the best way to do it. Just kind of really, day after day after day. You mentioned in my monologue, or in my intro, that I did 6 summer seasons in Provincetown. So I did I think an entire summer, 2.5 months, missing like 7 days. Almost every single night I did a show. And I was so sharp by the end of that. It just takes doing it over and over. So it's not even just the amount of time writing, it's the amount of time delivering it. Because no matter how funny it is, once you've written it, you have to sort of get the feel for it and say it and feel how saying it feels. And then it's memorizing it and getting it down. So there's a lot of it that goes into just telling a joke. It's not just, the best comedians make it look like it's coming off the top of their head right then and there. And it's not usually, when you improvise stuff, that is coming off the top of your head, but it's hard to improvise an entire hour-long show.
Yes. What's the best scenario that ever happened in your illustrious career?
I don't know about best, but the most rewarding certainly were the shows I did for the military. I was in Iraq, I was in Afghanistan, I went to Bosnia, Macedonia, Japan, and Korea before it got really scary, before 2001. And it was there, I just got a whole different feel for the military and the people in the military. And not that I didn't respect them. My father was a World War II vet. I had enormous respect for the military, but
Your father was a World War II veteran?
Correct. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what
And
did he do in World War II, Jennie?
he was a nurse, or as he would have, I always used to say I was a male nurse, like we didn't know he was male, but he was a nurse in World War. And he had no previous medical training. They just sort of, he just sort of helped out and did whatever they needed to do. He actually applied to the Marines. He went to volunteer for the Marines, and they told him he had flat feet. So, because he liked their uniforms, and then I think he went to the Navy, hopefully not for the same reason, because those uniforms are pretty screwy looking. But anyway, they both turned him down for flat feet. So he said, screw it, and waited for the Army to draft him. So he went in later once the Army did draft him. But when I was there, here's a good example. When I was in Iraq, we did shows at a place called Freedom Rest, which was the former Iraqi National Guard headquarters. It was where the soldiers went. It used to be the headquarters there, and what they've done was they made it into like this play place. They had apparently Saddam Hussein liked swimming, so he had this Olympic-sized pool with diving platforms. So the pool was there, and this is where the soldiers would go for 4 days of R&R. So if their unit had gotten hit with a lot of incidents or injuries or deaths, or if they just hadn't gotten a break in a long time, they would go there and they would get 4 days where they could put their guns down. They could just wear their PT. They didn't have to have their uniform on all the time. And they were just relaxed. They had a music thing there. They had video games for them. They had musical equipment. They had a recording room if you want to play drums or record music. It was amazing. They just took over the complex. And we went there, and we were there on day 3 of their R&R. And this was again way back in 05, I believe it was. And 05 or 06. And Bush was still in office, baby Bush. And whenever someone is from Texas, I used to do a joke. If they start yapping, I'm like, you guys like your state, don't you? And they always go, yeah, we love Texas. And I go, you want to be your own country, don't you? And they always go, yeah. And I'm like, well, on behalf of the rest of the country, we'll miss you. But if you go, you got to take your president with you. And now that was a standard joke I did, right? In Bushland, which worked stateside. So I'm at this place. Their 3rd day of their R&R, Freedom Rest. This guy chimes up. He's from Houston, and without thinking, I just automatically went into that bit. And then halfway through it, I'm like, "Oh shit! Mayday! Mayday! This is gonna die! This is gonna die! They're gonna hate me!" And it got an applause break. And to me, I was like, "Holy crap! This is soldiers here, applauding getting Bush out of office, right?" So I tried it the next day on a base, and it got crickets. Now, okay, it could have been that it was that group of human beings. I really doubt it. I think it was more of the fact that they were relaxed after 3 days. That's them, that's who they are. And then when you put them where they're supposed to be in duty, they are, back to being soldiers again. And to me, it spoke volumes. It was like, these people may or may not believe they should be there, but they were doing their damnedest to be there and doing a great job and representing us really well. And all the stories we would get from the soldiers about the good stuff that they're doing there that you might not have heard in the press. It was just really enlightening and the most rewarding shows I've ever done. Oh, we froze. I froze. Someone froze. I don't know if I'm still on. Linda, are you back? What? Here we go. Nope. It still says live on Facebook. So if it's just me, hi, I kicked Linda off. This is a very strange day. Mercury's in retrograde, and my show was weird today. My guest's phone blew up on him, and he couldn't do the interview. So I guess we'll just discuss the Lunar New Year, and if I'm even still on, perhaps I'm talking to myself. I'm not quite sure. But I'm Jennie McNulty, and that was Linda Marcus Smith. And I don't know what's going on here.